This is turn 44 of I equipped my heavy crossbow, and Pythium has surrendered. So he regretted not attacking me sooner, and faced with the loss of his largest army of Hydras, the loss of his large army of crossbows in a conventional fight, and the fact that I continue to be conquering his territory, he has gone AI. So this Golem cleans up the last of the stuff that Pythium had in the water. I continue finding more sites, and this is actually a really good site because it's going to let me recruit these guys. So these are going to give me additional air access and some amphibious mages, which are going to be able to help summon additional water elementals underwater, just in case I need to fight more underwater fights from potentially an amphibious attack from Archocephaly. So here Pythium is using, or the AI Pythium is using the Serpent Assassins, which Pythium had built up, but two of them run into a Tomb Oracle who really doesn't care about assassins. I find a Sky Split Oak here, which is nice. That's some air income. I definitely like air gems. Here I find yet more death gems. Pythium doesn't seem to have searched his lands all too well, so I'm just helping out with that now that I've conquered them. Here my Raptor raiding party continues to be successful, so I'm just going to keep bouncing further and further into his lands. The Shade Lands here is nice, as is the Slave Market, which is giving me a little bit of blood income. I'm eventually going to be able to use this blood income that I'm getting from the site to empower into blood if the game goes late. And I'm also going to be able to just brute force blood searching with scouts if it ever gets there. But in the meantime, I can continue just, doing my thing. Gath returns the nature gems that I sent him in exchange for yet another axe, given that he has decided that it is time to join the fray against me. But like Pythium, he's doing it much too late. Here the AI attacks with a large group of, I'm not going to say everything, but most everything that it had. And while I do lose the fight in terms of the fact that my Tomb Oracle eventually runs away, just from the fear aura of the Hydras, I do come out massively ahead. In terms of like actual losses because I don't lose anything in the fight. And the AI isn't going to be casting any dangerous spells. I don't need to worry about the AI even hurting this SC. The Lance attacks, especially because of the high fatigue here, are actually doing a fair bit of damage to this Tomb Oracle, but because he is heroically obese, he just has such a large amount of HP, and because of all of his buffs, his protection is high enough that even with the occasional critical hit and those Lance charges, he's not really being whittled down very far. And once it's time for him to hit back, and once he's hitting back, the area of effect from the Firebrand is chewing through these very low HP Long Dead Horsemen. They've actually been given fire vulnerability from their protection buff. Or some of them have at any rate. Because he's not close enough for the Soul Vortex to actually go off, his fatigue is remaining quite high. And with his high fatigue, he's actually taking the occasional scratch. So this is a hero that the human Pythium gave inspirational to so that he could lead the troops, and the AI Pythium has decided is a thug and should go fight, which is not very clever. So the Hydras are starting to get enraged for the morale issues to take effect, but Tomb Oracle, he's still killing them much more than they're killing him, and the poison aura from the Hydras here is doing a fair amount of damage to his own units as well. The Sacreds here don't need to worry about that because they have regeneration, but this Tribune does. see here, yeah, he's being poisoned down. The poison aura does build up over time, which means that eventually even these sacred cataphracts are taking damage. The serpents themselves are poison resistant, so they're not going to take damage, but the human riders are already dead. And yeah, he's killing a bunch of these hydras. This is basically just luck on my part in that the hydras happened to circulate in through the front here, which meant that he's able to focus on them and kill them, and thus removing their fear auras. And yeah, with his 20% regeneration from his Ring and Bless, and his massive HP pool from his Heroic ability, he's actually regenerating 30 HP a round. Eventually Paralyzed lands here, which reduces his attack and defense to 0, so he's going to be getting hit a fair bit. These guys have routed, by the way. They don't want any of this. Yep, he's just... Most of what he's killing right now is just these battle-summoned long dead, so that's a little too bad. But on the other hand, you know, he's not dying or anything. The way that these guys are. Poor Serpent Cataphracts. And the Hydras have finally gotten close enough that they're going to start doing their Fear Aura without standing right here, and thus dying quickly. And you can see here his morale is being seriously reduced by his fear. But he's also able to do a fair bit of killing. And this Hydra here did not even pass the check against his awe. As was the case with many similar fights, he does eventually run away from that Fear Aura, but he kills so much stuff in the process. Many of these things were actually killed from the Poison Aura from the Hydras, so pretty much all the basic human infantry that died came from that, as well as many of these commanders who were running forward. He additionally cleared out a bunch of these long dead horses, as we saw, and even a fair few of the full-size Hydras. So, not a loss that I'm going to feel too sad about. Gath attacked me and lost a province defense because he just attacked with some regular amphibious stuff. Here, the AI actually deployed this big old blob of gargoyles that Pythium had been summoning with his god. And he even has a third. Where was that? This guy. Okay, so this is basically what Pythium should have been using to actually kill my tomb oracles. He can also use additional astral mages from out of his capital in order to support his Thurgs, but the Thurgs should form the core of that, and that should be what he's like building up full time in order to fight SCs. Anyways, it's too late now, and he's gone AI, and AI is not going to do that, but I'm just saying that's the sort of thing that Pythium needed to do in order to avoid losses like that. this is just my Tomb Oracle going ever deeper into Pythium's territory, and I'm going to just go ahead and send him on to the capital. I figure that I have a decent chance of holding firm, and I'm just going to continue bouncing the Tomb Oracle off of this group, basically, because I don't need to respect the AI actually putting together an answer for it. Here, I'm going to... I don't remember why I stacked scouts over here. I probably didn't mean to. Well, this guy is going to continue going onto Pythium, and he's going to siege up this castle. It's a nice farm province. That should give me a fair bit of income. And my raiders are going ever deeper into Pythium's territory as well. I'm just raiding up more of these provinces, which, given the fact that he's AI, I can actually theoretically even expect to hold on to. So Gath is attacking me with pretty much the same non-strategy that he's been using against the AI, namely just a big old blob of sacreds. So I'm going to drop a golem onto it. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so this golem is pretty much the same setup. He has a Ring of Tamed Lightning because we saw that the Malak that he had been using earlier had a lightning spear. And so if he is using another Malak thug, then I can give him lightning resistance to that. He's using a Vine Shield and a Flesh Eater because the Sacred Giants are going to be able to actually hit him. The Vine Shield is the only item which will allow this golem to survive. In fact, this equipment setup is literally the only equipment setup which would let the golem actually win the fight, aside from stuff that actually uses artifacts, because the Vine Shield sufficiently reduces the enemy attack density in order to prevent the giants, which just have a large amount of strength, from overwhelming the golem. With their Water 9 Bless, they're able to attack quickly enough that even an SC would get whittled down over time. However, with the Vine Shield entangling up a fair number of the attackers, he's going to be able to regenerate through that with my N9 Bless. Similarly, the Flesh Eater is absolutely essential because the golem offensively just isn't going to be killing these N9 giants very quickly. So in order for him to survive past the turn timer, he's going to need to take advantage of the fact that it's giving him Berserker. So with this exact equipment setup, he's actually able to win the fight. I guess you could swap out like the boots and such, but yeah, this is exactly what he needs in order to win. I do actually know that he's going to win this fight because I'm moving in the magic phase, so there's going to be no surprises here. So I know exactly what this army has, and he hasn't deployed any magic move stuff of his own. So unless he has like some stealth units which are like appearing in the battle, which I have no reason to expect, I can safely then move my army forward onto this province, and then with the army moving in, they'll basically be able to join up with the golem. So if he does move stuff here in the regular movement phase, which could kill the golem's not going to be alone anymore. He'll just be sitting back at the corner with this whole big army in front of it, and then the army should be able to handle whatever Gath's reinforcements are, and then they're going to be able to move further forward onto Gath's territory itself. I see that Gath is moving a bunch of guys over here as well, so I'm going to do move and patrol with this big ol' army, basically all the stuff that had been here on the province, and I have just a huge amount of mage support here. So this is going to be a full late mid-game Agarthan army. It's going to be using all the standard Agarthan tactics of Horde of Skeletons, the various earth buffs, my super sacreds, and I'm going to be using some of the new later stuff that I now have, and I haven't had a chance to use earlier, namely Darkness, and Magma Eruption, because I've been researching some evocation. So that's going to give me a little bit more firepower, and I fully expect to be able to hold this fort over here. Once I win that fight, I can then hit back onto Gath, and potentially even get onto his capital. Alternatively, I can move this army up here and go for this throne. So I can do either or, but either way I do expect to win that fight. And then this is just the AI raiding with little groups of hatchlings. Where's that here? So I'm not able to hold on to this fortress, but I am able to retake this province. So I'm just going to move these guys up over here and retake the fortress there. Then here, this is my little raiding party of undead and undead summoners. And then, yeah, I'm not retaking this province quite yet, just because I don't have anything handy. This guy's just set to retreat, but he might find something. You never know. These guys here are sieging this fortress down because it has a throne that I want. So I am actually going to want to storm it and take it over. This guy here is sieging this castle basically just to keep it contained and to get me the nice income that I get from the farm province. I am sort of expecting Arcocephaly to attack me soon, but similar to Gath, even though he should probably have already been attacking me, I don't think that he's going to want to until he actually finishes conquering Ulm. So I was considering attacking him this turn, but instead I'm basically just moving stuff up to basically prepare to attack him next turn, under the supposition that he's going to be attacking me at that time, and then I can start moving onto the thrones. You can see here this guy's sneaking up over there, and then he's got another throne over here, so I'm going to be using probably this guy here, since he also has a stealth item, in order to go for this throne as well. So I am finishing conquering Pythium, and responding to Gath's attack with a counterattack of my own, both onto that army there. I'm moving this guy over here, which is just like, small group of Sacreds and Archers and Evocation, which is then going to go on to Tianqi, because I see that he's moved his army as just one big block over here. And then I'm countering his army over there. So between all of this, I basically expect to be able to win the 1v3 war with no trouble, because I've already snowballed myself into a very large advantage. And that's the turn. This is turn 45 of I equipped my heavy crossbow, and my Golem, you made this possible. It jumps onto Gath's army. So Gath actually traded me the axe which makes this Golem work. And this is going to be a very boring fight. So as you can see here, the Giants are actually capable of hurting this Golem. They have magic weapons, so they are punching right through the ethereal. But between the Astral Shield and his Vine Shield, he's able to reduce the attack density of the amount of things that are hitting him at the same time. Given that his troops have very good morale, and that he is continuing to use morale items and extremely high leadership commander in order to make sure that his guys are going to stay in the fight, they are going to continue throwing their bodies at this Golem for the entire battle. So the Golem is actually able to hit them, mostly because these guys are set to 0 attack and defense, thanks to either being entangled, or thanks to the Astral Shield on the Golem, this thing here. And even with that, he's slowly being whittled down, but he's able to regenerate and basically stay reasonably healthy, thanks to the fact that he's got this Shroud and Might and Nine Bless. On some turns he does fail his magic resistance check against Smite, but because most turns he's not taking any damage, he's fairly stable. Oh, it's worth noting that Golems also have built-in slashing and pierce resistance, which means that even though these guys, they're hitting for 28 damage, so they're basically doing DRN additional damage to the Golem every time they hit him, he's not taking very much damage very often, because that which does get past his protection is reduced by half. And then here you can see his commander, even though he was most likely set to stay behind troops, eventually makes it forward to the front line. And yeah, even with most of the commanders here dead, he still has this guy here casting Smite at the back, so he has some commanders for his troops, so his army isn't automatically routing. It's also worth noting that you keep the I think you keep the morale bonus. Yeah, so these guys all still have very high morale. Yeah, here we go. Right. But eventually a sufficient portion of the army has died in order to force yet another morale check, and eventually even these very high morale zealots are running. Also worth noting that every giant that he hits is getting a chest wound, and they're also getting other afflictions just on account of how much damage they're taking. Okay, so this is actually the turn timer. So we have hit the turn timer where this guy, if he was not berserk, would be routing, would be melting. Because he's a mindless unit, he would just straight up die. But because he's gone berserk, he's actually staying in the fight and not melting. And eventually he has killed enough of these Gathite giants that even their incredibly high morale gibbers do rout. And with his own quickness, he's even able to catch one of them and do a bit more damage. So yeah, great fight for me. I killed a huge number of giants. I wasn't able to cut him off, so his stuff did retreat there. But yeah, definitely a worthy fight. Here, my blind fighter, crossbow, and mage support group was able to take over this province from Gath, and they're now able to go. This is like a former TNG province here, and they're now going to be able to march onto TNG itself. Here, I am retaking this little thing from the raiding party that was besieging it. My attempt to take Pythium's capital also worked out, so now his capital is under siege by my Tomb Oracle here. Let's see. It's just an SC beating up province defense, so almost as boring as watching that Golem swing at things for like 50 rounds in a row. But yeah, he's got the Awe, he's got regeneration, additional magic resistance, and as I mentioned, the AI is not known to be particularly innovative, so even though he did bring a mage with this thing, and even gave the mage some gems with the Clam of Pearls, he's not going to be doing anything exciting. And yeah, I guess we don't need to see this, but yeah, he's just getting, Yedenderig is getting even more superpowered. He's awesome. My raiding party is of course successful again. Here, he finally does manage to take one of my water provinces by using a bunch of these amphibious summons, and his hero, the Sibyl of Hermon. So this is actually a very valuable guy for Gath, because, you know, it is a national hero, you can't be relied upon to get her. And yeah, Nature 4, Astral 3. She could be summoning up some swarms and stuff, but instead she's just casting Wooden Warriors on his guys to increase their protection by a fair bit. And the fire vulnerability isn't usually a big deal underwater. So my province defense is able to beat his amphibious troops here, these Turtle Warriors. But once it comes time to fight his summons, they don't do nearly as well. So these guys here have very poor stats because they're poor amphibians, so they have a -3 penalty. They have an additional penalty from using a blunt damage underwater, and they have a they just also have very low base attack and defense. So at first my guys are doing pretty well. However, Claymen have built-in regeneration and built-in pierce resistance, so they're taking less damage from my Triton guards. And then with the protection buff, they are taking even less damage from each hit. More importantly, though, these guys are mindless, which means that they're not going to ever rout. Given that my squad is locked onto this squad, they're not ever going to go around, and eventually my squad takes enough damage to actually rout. So even though the Claymen were being killed more quickly than they were killing my Tritons, the fact that they are mindless and therefore not going to run away eventually allows them to capture the province. But, you know, it's not the end of the world, it's just something I'll have to retake. And then here we see probably the largest battle of the game, I think. Oh no, the crossbow province we already saw was bigger. But this is the first battle in which we actually see all of Agartha's actual battle magic. This is actually the thing that I used at the very this is the battle that I used at the very beginning in order to show off Agartha's magic, because this is sort of, I guess, the core of Agartha's mid-game strategy, is using a bunch of crossbows, buffing up your crossbows, and then using battlefield enchants, evocation, and so on. So with darkness, you can see that my undead are not penalized at all. Neither are my blind fighters, and then even my regular infantry have partial dark vision, which means that their attack and defense are reduced by half of the usual penalty. The Scorpion Beasts have perfect dark vision as well, but his regular troops do not. So these guys go from base attack of 10 all the way down to -6. His giants are similarly affected, going down from a base 12, take -6 from darkness, and go down to a full attack of 7. So, attack skill of 5 even on the experienced zealots, attack skill of 4 on the less experienced ones, and the giants are swinging with only 6 themselves. So while Scorpion Beasts aren't particularly affected, his main troops, his sacreds, which you would be expecting to do the killing for him, are not going to be killing very well. You can also see here that some of these guys get hit by acid, which corrodes their gear. Let's see if I can find the ones that got hit. I think it's these guys. Yeah, so this guy's got rusty equipment now, which means that his armor is going to break if it takes additional damage. In addition to the direct damage that these skeletons, or the direct benefit that these skeletons are providing, I'm also casting Legions of Steel on them, basically just because they happen to be there, and my buff mage has already buffed up my sacreds. So these long dead are going to be slightly more resilient than usual as well. So some of my crossbowmen here do get hit by this big ol' flanking group here, because Gath just brought more infantry than I did, and he laid his out in a line. And these guys did eventually just get exhausted, and they're not summoning any more skeletons anymore. However, Gath's armies are focused on this because that's what his squad is targeting. His Scorpion Beasts have routed, and now it's the core of his army against the core of mine. And my guys are just incredibly resilient. So they have their full attack and defense, they have 26 protection, they have reinvigoration to help with this awful encumbrance fatigue problem, and yeah. While they're offensively unimpressive, they're just not getting hit, and even when they are getting hit, they're just not taking damage. Between the magma eruption and the flaming arrows, there is a little bit of friendly fire, but even when they do get hit, these guys just tank it. And as you can see, while his double blessed sacreds did eventually manage to chew through the vast majority of the undead that were summoned in support of my army, my blind fighter line easily held. This was another battle where, while the armies favored my opponent in terms of, not numbers in this case, but in terms of the amount of gold brought in troops, and gems in this case with his Scorpion Beasts, my guys just had way more mage support. So this ended up being an almost lossless fight, with losing only one blind fighter, which, you know, occasionally you'll get a bad roll, especially when you're facing high-strength units with these magic attacks and so on. And I lost a couple crossbowmen from his line being sufficiently longer than mine in order to flank me. But this was otherwise just a total crushing victory, with only a couple of gems spent on my side. And now I'm going to be able to move down and take on both of these provinces. So my full army is basically just continuing to move forward here. I spread out my line a little bit, basically in order to make sure that my crossbows can't get flanked, as they did in that last fight. And then this guy, the Tomb Oracle, I've already shown that his army can't beat a properly geared Golem with a Vine Shield and so on. And the Tomb Oracles are actually even tankier than the Golem when it comes to unit versus unit fights, so I expect to have no trouble here. If he's clever, he's going to send this army further into my territory over here, but I'm willing to make that trade because I can use just my mages in order to take on his army, thanks to skeletons and elementals, as we've seen when I was fighting Pythium. So I have this big old amphibious army over here, which is basically just what was over here, or most of it rather, being marched across over the water here. Now that I see Archocephaly's forces, which should be able to beat Ulm over here, and more importantly I see that he moved an army up over here, I actually do expect Archocephaly to attack me. So, Mystics are actually capable of killing golems just by accident, even if they're, well, not by accident, but like even if they're not scripted specifically to answer SCs, with Gifts of Heaven, or Gifts from Heaven, and similar strong evocation magic, they're going to be able to kill even a fully geared SC. So I don't want to actually risk taking on this army over here with this golem until I see what it's been scripted for, and because I have a bunch of guys over here in Marignon, I am basically just going to let him take over this swamp over here, and move my golem out of the way so I can see what he has with this army, and then if it's not particularly dangerous, I can just take it back with my guys over here. Meanwhile, Dancer is going to be able to teleport onto White Harbor. That's this farm province over here. Given that I don't expect Archocephaly to move a bunch of mages up onto this farm, I can potentially stop a fort from being built, given that he's got 2 units there. It looks like he's just building a fort with scouts, so I can cost him a fair amount of economic damage by doing that. And of course get this province for myself temporarily in order to get some additional money. Most of these guys are going to continue hanging out over here onto this province, and many of them are scripted to summon water elementals, so even if he does launch an amphibious attack with some turtle warriors, mystics, and living statues, I should still be able to hold this province. Similarly, I'm going to be using my raptors here as raiders to attack Archocephaly deeper into his territory, and I'm attacking every province here along this front. So basically, as one does, when you expect to be attacked, you want to make sure that you are attacking your opponent first. So, yeah, even though I'm expecting him to attack me next turn, I'm going to be attacking him at the same time. So, based on what he has over here, I expect to be able to take maybe 3 out of 4 of these provinces, which is going to basically let me get the leg up in the war, even though he's going to be attacking me at the same time, and potentially taking a couple of my provinces in exchange. Meanwhile, most of my SEs are continuing to do their thing of just pushing further into the AI's territory. Given that I'm holding his capital under siege, I expect him to break siege here. Here I'm going to be storming the castle, and yeah, I'm leaving one guy here just in case everything goes wrong, but I have a huge amount of firepower over here. I moved everything a little bit further forward, and I'm also scripting my mages for evocation, so I'm, instead of just doing Horde of Skeletons, I'm having my Chthonian Necromancer do Banefire at first, and then after stuff has had a chance to move forward, launching a couple Shadow Blasts, and then, yeah, I'm moving this group right over here at the very front so that they have a chance to break into the fortress right away. And then, yeah, with my evocation and a large amount of flaming arrows, I'm hoping to be able to just burst through the army that the AI has left inside of the fort, and so be able to seize this castle, and then potentially claim the throne within. Meanwhile, my Tomb Oracle, I'm basically just having a scout here to hold the fortress and retreat, and then I'm just continuing to search Pythium's provinces, because I just don't expect the AI to be able to retake a significant portion of his land. Here in Imiklen, where was that? No, that's Imiklen. That was the big cool fight that I won. The AI is basically just raiding me because it attacks somewhat mindlessly. And then here, so this is basically similar to what happened last time, albeit with fewer losses on the AI side on account of the fact that he just has less stuff to lose, but eventually the Fear Aura of the Hydras is able to make my SC route. But given that I'm just whittling down the force that he has inside of here, I'm just going to continue attacking this province with my Tomb Oracle, and I expect to eventually win as well. The AI did manage to get this, or Pythium did manage to get this hero here, the Imposter, so he's kind of cool. He's like a sort of a little rainbow guy that Pythium can get. He can cast Banefire and stuff later on. It's kind of nice to have all those cross paths on a mage. But he's not going to be doing anything particularly important just because, yeah, the AI is not going to be creative. And I know that Pythium doesn't have the research for Banefire, so my Tomb Oracle SC is relatively safe. And then here, Archocephaly is scouting Ulm's capital. And we can see here all of the stuff that Ulm has arranged in order to defend himself. So it's just like a big old ball of mages. He has his Pretender here without gems to cast Shadow Blast, so hopefully he remembers to add those on. He's doing a round 1 Twist Fate on anything, so presumably he's expecting some sort of battlefield clear from Archocephaly's army. We are definitely at the stage of the game where one can expect that sort of thing. And given that Archocephaly's Pretender is on this army over here. Yeah, we can see that Bane the Cyclops is commanding. We can expect Archocephaly to be deploying some sort of battlefield clear, like Earthquake or Rain of Stones, or some sort of other trick that he would want to use his Pretender for. Just to look at what I'm using to attack real quick, I summoned a Flame Spirit here. So she's going to be summoning up a couple Fire Elementals, and I'm having a Mage do an additional Fire Elemental, and just a regular Horde of Skeletons thing, and then these archers are basically just here to draw aggro. Here I'm attacking with these Sepulchrals, which as we saw are kind of like mini-thugs in that they are resilient and regenerating. Here I'm attacking with just lots of Horde of Skeleton summoning, the front line of Free Ghouls, and some additional Earth Elementals and Destruction Spam, in order to help clear out whatever Archocephaly is defending with. I'm not going to be attacking with this Tomb Oracle because I want to sneak him onto the throne. And then here I'm attacking with just a couple Horde of Skeletons casts and, again, some Sacrificial Ghouls. So very light raiding parties, but they should be all I need. And then this throne over here I'm going to be moving some additional units onto, basically most of the Sacreds and Ichthyids from here, just in order to help siege it down. And I'm building additional Ichthyids over here, similarly in order to add onto this throne so that I can break through the walls more quickly, and eventually siege it, and eventually storm it in order to claim that throne as part of my bid to win the game. And that is the turn.